This is BBC News. Welcome if you're watching here in the UK or around the globe. I'm James Reynolds. Our top stories. In Italy, coronavirus kills nearly 800 people in a single day, the highest total anywhere in the world since the outbreak began. In Spain, there's been a big rise as well, an increase of more than 300 deaths, bringing the total number of fatalities there to more than 1,300. As the death toll rises here in the UK, a plea from the Prime Minister for everyone to stay at home to protect health services and lives. And deserted streets in South America as Brazil's largest state, Sao Paulo, announces a 2-week shutdown. The coronavirus pandemic has now infected more than 300,000 people around the world. In Italy, nearly 800 people have died within the past 24 hours. That is by far the worst single-day total worldwide since the pandemic began. It brings the total number of deaths in Italy to 4,825. Our correspondent Sima Kotecha reports from Rome.
No children, just empty playgrounds in Rome's largest park. Even tougher rules that have come into force today say people can't go into them to try and curb the outbreak. Here for several weeks, schools have already been closed.
The only noises that you can hear are the bells, the church bells, which is nice, but the other noise is the ambulances. That's all, the only two noises that you hear.
In Lombardy, the worst affected region, teachers say some children felt lost without social contact, but virtual lessons are helping.
To begin with, they were scared, I think, of their reality being taken away from them. Being able to actually deliver reality through a computer, even if he's obviously on a completely different scale, has been particularly important.
From tomorrow, people in Lombardy will no longer be allowed to exercise, even on their own, in open spaces, as part of the measures aimed at slowing down the spread of the virus. All vending machines will also be banned.
Aurelio, how do you feel about the coronavirus? Thumbs down?
Yeah.
Thumbs down.
One parent in Rome tells us she's worried about the psychological impact the outbreak will have on the young.
He is having a little bit of nightmares, though.
He's having nightmares.
Yeah. I don't know if it's connected, but he's having nightmares about spiders most nights. He says he's not worried because he's brave.
You're brave. Well, that's fantastic. You seem very brave and you look very brave.
Nobody has lived through times like this before. The spaces may be smaller, but as ever, everybody is learning to adapt. Sima Kotecha, BBC News, Rome.
Well, let's head to Spain now, because the number of deaths from the virus there has jumped by a third in a day to more than 1,300. That's behind only Iran, China and Italy. The capital, Madrid, has been particularly badly hit and hospitals there are struggling to cope. Spain's Prime Minister, Pedro Sánchez, has praised the country's response to the crisis 1 week into its state of emergency. But he underlined the importance of people continuing to stay at home, warning that the coming days would be extremely challenging.
Desgraciadamente, lo peor está por llegar.
Unfortunately, the worst is yet to come. Hard days are ahead of us. We are yet to suffer the impact of the worst wave, the most harmful, that will push our material and moral capacities to the limit, also our attitudes as a society.
Well, here in the UK, Boris Johnson has issued a fresh warning that coronavirus will overwhelm the NHS unless everyone starts to practice social distancing, and that the UK is no more than 3 weeks behind Italy when it comes to the spread of the virus. Mr. Johnson has urged everyone in the UK to follow official guidance to stay at home to save lives. The death toll here has now risen to 233. Here's Dominic Hughes.
Tonight, a stark warning from the Prime Minister. The NHS is at real risk of being overwhelmed by the coronavirus. Boris Johnson warns we are just 2 or 3 weeks behind Italy and the virus is accelerating. But some good news too in what looks like a really significant deal with private hospitals. 8,000 beds, 1,200 ventilators and thousands of staff will be made available at cost to the NHS.
This is fantastic news. It will really help me and my colleagues on the front line to feel supported and to have the capacity in the hospital to admit the sickest patients to give them the care we need. My only concern about this is PPE, visors, masks, gowns. We know that we've had some shortages in the NHS recently, and I would like to see some assurances that the new staff who are coming on board are going to be protected and that there's going to be PPE enough for all of us to use.
Medical staff are still extremely concerned over access to adequate protective clothing. The government says enough of the right kit is available. Meanwhile, on the first day of what is meant to be something close to lockdown and strict social distancing, in the centre of Newcastle, some people were still out and about. From the experts, though, a real sense that a moment of crisis is fast approaching.
If you follow the advice, you are saving somebody's life. This is the time in your lifetime whereby your action will save somebody's life. It's as simple and as stark as that.
A picture of those who are being admitted to critical care units after falling ill to the virus has begun to emerge. Data was collected on 196 patients in England, Wales and Northern Ireland. More than half of them were being looked after by hospitals in London. There's a significant difference between women and men. More than 2/3 were male, and 132 patients needed a ventilation machine to help them breathe. 16 patients sadly died. 17 were able to be discharged to regular hospital wards. The rest remained in intensive care. There is now real concern about the number of cases that are presenting in London, but also a small but significant cluster in Birmingham and the West Midlands. But the